What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC, and in this video I'm checking out the Cobra Tec Viper, which is an out-the-side automatic from CobraTec with a hidden release mechanism. At first glance, there's no obvious way to open this knife, no thumb studs or flipper tabs or anything like that. You do have a little bit of access to that blade, but aren't able to pinch and pull either, and so not super obvious how you deploy this. Now, if you're not familiar with CobraTec, and I will show obviously how to deploy it in just a minute, but for a kind of brief background, CobraTec makes mostly out the front autos, some out the side, and a few manuals, but they're known for being a budget out the front auto maker. And so most out the front automatics are really expensive, and that's because you can't import automatic knives into the US, so all of them are made right here in the US. Now, CobraTec and a couple other companies get around that by making these in China. They do all of the machining and everything in China and ship them to the US disassembled, and then CobraTec assembles them and sells them here. And so they're able to get it at a lot lower price point. And I'm not talking about just getting the materials and machining them here, buying them from China, machining them here. Everything is done in China. They're literally just putting them together. And so that's how they're able to get that lower price point. This one is $79.99, so pretty cheap for what it is. Really cool. The closest alternative to this is the ProTech Magic Whiskers, and that one's going to be significantly more money because, again, it's fully made in the US. And so really cool way to get a knife like this at a lower price point. Now, it's available in black as well as OD green. I went with the black because I bought it in person and that's what was available. The OD green does look a little bit better and still has the black titanium coated blade. So I like the looks of it aesthetically a little bit better, but don't mind this black one either. Now, I'm okay with paying $79.99 with this, as knowing that it's really just a novelty knife for me. It's not legal to carry where I live, and really just wanted to check out that hidden release mechanism, share it on the channel, but was hoping that it would be a pretty usable knife, and it is. So in terms of opening it, I took it to a birthday party last weekend with mostly non-knife people. There was a couple knife people, one or two, but mostly non-knife people, and just kind of handed it to them, made sure that they stayed clear of the blade, but otherwise said, can you figure out how to open this? And all of them did. It took some longer than others, but figured it out pretty quickly because you can kind of see the seam here along this bolster. And if you look at the backside, that seam doesn't exist. It's even more obvious when you look at the spine right here and right here that there's kind of a break in the action there. And so most people immediately started trying to press it, thinking you just press on that bolster, which is not the case. In order to deploy it, you're going to want to slide that away from the blade towards the spine of the knife. And you're able to do that pretty easily because of this diamond pattern on the bolster. Makes it really grippy. And so once you do that, you can see it comes flying out, and that same mechanism doubles as the lock. You just push it back and push it closed. So once you know the trick, really easy to do, but before knowing the trick, it's not super obvious. Now, it does lock up really well. There's no side-to-side play, no up and down play of any sort, and so you can definitely use it with confidence. I do find it to be a little bit more of a light user than a heavy user, but overall, I think is a really usable knife. You got D2 on that still. Like I said, it has that black titanium coating. I believe the handles are aluminum, but I don't think they actually list that on their product listing. And so one other thing about that product listing is Viper has it wrong, or at least it doesn't match my measurements, and so most of the retailers do as well. So I'm going to give you my measurements. If you want theirs, feel free to look them up. But like I said, they weren't 100% accurate to what I found, so keep that in mind. Now, I got 3.45 inches on that blade length, which is a decent bit longer than what they list, and no matter how I measured it, they weren't measuring the cutting edge. I measured it from tip to the end of the blade here at the handle and got 3.45 inches. In terms of the handle, I can see where they landed, but I got 3.5 inches. I think they just measured from this corner to this corner, right behind the lanyard hole, and didn't account for this slope in the handle. I did account for that and ended up at 4.5 inches, making my overall length 7.95 inches, which is about half an inch over what they list on the website. Don't know that it matters that much because for the most part, auto laws, you're either going to be legal to carry them, you're going to need much shorter blade than either I or they measured, or not able to carry them at all. So probably doesn't matter that much, but if you do care about the dimensions, they're a little bit different than what's listed. Now, the other place they got it different was the weight. So they listed this at 4 ounces, and I measured it at 3.23 ounces. I made sure to zero the scale a few times and weigh it again, 3.23 ounces every time. And so that is a little bit of a difference. If you're looking at this online, you see their blade length and their weight, and the weight to blade ratio that everyone likes to use is way off. It seems like it's going to be too heavy for what it is. But with my measurements at 3.23 ounces and 3.45 inch blade, it's kind of right in that Goldilocks zone, right where you want it. And so it feels good in hand. It doesn't feel super light. It's well balanced. And so that is something that was advantageous to be able to handle it in person. But if you're just looking at it online, you may skip over it because of that. Now, in terms of ergos, full 4-finger grip and really comfortable for that light duty use. When I first grabbed it in hand, I'm like, yep, that's a comfortable knife. Now, for extended use, anytime I do a video, I like to make sure to open some mail and packages, break down some boxes, carry it a little bit. And after some extended use, 10 to 15 minutes breaking down boxes, it does get a little bit hot in a couple places. Right here where the pocket clip meets the meat of your hand, and then again kind of right here at the front where your hand meets. And it's not a particularly sharp edge, but it does get a little bit hot, not extremely uncomfortable, but enough so that next time I'm breaking down boxes, I'll probably reach for something that I know is going to be a little bit more comfortable. It's not bad at all, definitely usable, but not the most comfortable heavy user either. But that's fine for what it is. I didn't buy it for that reason. Now, in terms of aesthetic, super clean actually. There's a CobraTec logo on the blade, which is pretty small, and then D2 stamped here kind of near the end of the blade, right at the bolster end of the tang there. The scales though are very clean, no billboarding whatsoever, no spot for a pocket clip, meaning it's not reversible, and then just that lanyard hole, but there's no hardware on this side either, which is cool. But it does have that lanyard hole. Unfortunate that the pocket clip's not reversible, but it does make sense because I have a really hard time actuating this with my index finger on my left hand, and it feels like it's gonna fly out of my hand. Now, someone that's naturally left-handed probably has a little bit more dexterity than me, so not sure how that would work left-handed, or if it would be just as problematic for me as a right-handed person trying to do it with my left hand. But that pocket clip isn't great. Probably wouldn't miss it if it didn't exist. Like I said, it does cause a little bit of a hot spot because of the placement. It's not extremely deep carry. It's also not very stout, not a strong pocket clip. It feels like it's gonna bend at the first chance it gets. And so, okay looking, but not my favorite pocket clip. Overall though, I did find this to be a really usable knife. One thing that really surprised me at that $79.99 price point and it being made in China is that they also offer a lifetime warranty on it. So that's pretty interesting. You do have to register it within 30 days of buying the knife, but if you do, they offer a lifetime warranty, which isn't something you see on a lot of knives that are made in China. So I was kind of impressed by that, and this is my first CobraTec knife that I've owned. I've handled plenty of them at shows and stuff like that, or people that I know that have them, but when you're handed a knife at a show or from someone you know, the first thing you do isn't necessarily cut. And so it was my first experience as a user. I think it was pretty decent overall. Now, I don't have their out the fronts. I feel like they have a lot more play than Microtech out the fronts, which is probably fair because they're made one place and assembled somewhere else, so the tolerances probably aren't going to be as great, and also you're paying a huge premium to get a little bit less play from those Microtechs. You're also getting better materials there, but worth noting. Now, I do have one other CobraTec product that I picked up at Blade Show, and this is their out the front bottle opener, which I think is pretty cool. Definitely a fun little conversation piece. It's kind of the same deal, you know, you take people to show, or take it to show people. It's fun, it's interesting. I definitely don't need another bottle opener, especially one that I think cost around 40 bucks, but it is a fun one, and it's a good way to show that out the front action without handing a non-knife person a bladed weapon or knife. And so where they're gonna accidentally cut themselves, there's no chance of them cutting themselves on this, and fun conversation piece, cool looking, and really good action still. Now, it does have a little bit of a ring to it, but I think that's just kind of the weight of the metal or maybe the shape of it, but it doesn't bother me so much. Usually you're going to be using it somewhere that's somewhat louder, but that's my only other CobraTec product to really compare it to, and it's a fun one. But let me know what you think in the comments below if you've handled this knife or other hidden mechanism knives. I know they have some other ones in their lineup that I think will be worth checking out. I gotta check if the mechanism's the same, because if it is, it's probably not as interesting to me, but if there's other mechanisms that they have in their lineup, I may check those out. I know like Terrain 365 has a traditional knife that can only be opened if it's at a certain orientation. That's kind of cool. And then I know ProTec has that Magic 2 coming out in August, was able to handle that prototype. That was much more complicated to open. Not really complicated once you figure out the action, but harder to figure out what it was, and then just a harder movement to master. But once you did, I think it would be pretty similar. But thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification button if you enjoyed this video. And as always, I hope you have a great one. Take care.